Welcome to Tabletop Tactics. Folks, welcome to Tabletop Tactics with myself, Lawrence, and the chef, aka Mike.
You can call me chef, it's fine.
That's what I will do.
You do anyway.
So what is this about? We are here to announce the relaunch of our all-new League show very, very soon. In fact, as of filming this, I think after this is released, probably in the same week, you're going to see the first League battle reports.
I mean, that would make sense.
Yes. Yes, it would, wouldn't it?
Logical, really.
It's logical. Now, the great news is that this is going to be an episodic series. There are 20 episodes in total. We've got a whole new format, which is going to be revealing to you guys today, which you're excited to talk about. But first of all, for you folks that are into competitive 40K, or even if it's not ultra competitive, the tactical nuance, perhaps the learning from mistakes whilst you play and getting better with playing with your army, your faction, then this new show is going to be for you. Now, League report-wise, you existing
that
subscribers
sounds like
and viewers,
something that's happened before, Lawrence.
Yes. Yes, it does. Now, I know...
Where did it go?
Where did it go? Well, let's talk about it.
Where did it come from?
So the League reports were being produced, weren't they? We were making them, and we did have a ranking system. And we were using the ELO method, right? Which is what chess uses, right?
Yeah, and a lot of other sort of competitive games or based off of it, but it's very complicated.
It is
math heavy, and I'm my brain.
And here's the thing: we had some challengers come in, some guest challengers, and we thought that's cool. Should we add them to the table? How are we going to do this? And it's at this point that we want to talk about why, in the end, we stopped making it and why we think it didn't work.
Yes.
Okay. So I've got some thoughts, but why don't I hand over to you first? Why do you think it ultimately didn't work?
Well, in terms of the League, because the whole point of the distinction that we have with the League, and we mentioned this a while back as well, is that our normal battle reports, our bread and butter, if you will, we're going to be using Tempest of War with a few little tweaks to kind of keep it in line with the Nephilim GT missions. And we'll probably continue to do that with any subsequent ones that come out, if they change CP again or whatever, what have you. Mainly because those are the more casual games, although there's still that kind of competitive edge to it. It's a game, everyone wants to win, but we want to win by having a good time. The same thing applies to the League. However, this is where I feel that the League kind of dropped off a little bit, because there was a lot of, not pressure, but I think there was a lot of expectation that we were going to run bleeding edge meta, cutting, destroying lists that someone I saw someone use this list last weekend. Why don't you have 180 racks? Well, because we don't own 5. So we were kind of limited in what we could do in terms of trying to keep up with that meta.
Yeah, and it changes so quickly now.
And it does change so quickly.
Because of the FAQs and the way that they're
Which is no bad thing, but again, from a competitive standpoint, it's hard to keep up. Now, with the advent of the Nephilim GT mission pack, we've kind of stepped away from those style of missions for now. But now the burgeoning and the rising from the Phoenix has arisen, rising.
Yes, Phoenix Rising.
Fire.
So, no, I completely agree. Ultimately, we weren't able to do the competitive, and when I say competitive, the ultra competitive, as in meta, cutting edge meta lists, justice, because they change so much and so often, and often they make very skewed armies. So we'd have to paint a very unusual amount of, say, one squad or so forth, and that would probably only be in vogue for a couple of months. By that point, we invested lots of money into it, and then guess what? It's suddenly nerfed, or the things change to make it not worth it
use them anymore. Looking at our entire row of squig buggies and mech guns.
Right, and so we end up chasing this thing which you can never, ever truly be on top of.
No, not unless you already have 3 of everything in the entire game already, which, I mean, look, we're working blooming hard to get to that stage, but we don't.
Yes. Now, this has always been the thing which I've disliked about competitive, play in general, where you're constantly chasing the meta. In order to be relevant, you need to have the best army, the latest and greatest thing. I always like the idea that in a competitive league, you get your faction And that's what you use for the season.
That sounds like something that I've been saying for several years. Weird that.
You know what? The best will still play the best, in theory. But they won't be able to rely on the crutches of having the best rules, because a faction that they choose may end up not being as powerful as it was when it first dropped. Because assuming the best players will still probably choose the best army at the time, or at that point you start getting the skill side of trying to be insightful as to what you think might happen, where it might shift. What would be an army which would weather most storms over the course of a season, however long that may be, right? So that's what we're going to do.
Basically, yes.
That's what we're going to do. And this way, we think that you can have a much better insight into the evolution of a competitive army, the evolution of an army that has to adapt to the existing meta, because frankly, not everyone can go out and get the latest army, or nor wants to paint up, 100 plus racks or whatever it may be that's really in vogue at the time. So, for this season of the League, the next 20 episodes, every single one of us here has committed to a single army.
One Uno army. And I think it's important to reiterate on this, and because this kind of goes back to why the League also, another sort of thing, why the previous iteration of the League didn't work quite as well as I think we wanted it to. In order to give you guys the variety, especially when it comes to competitive, we're having to chop and change armies. We do that enough already, but it's very different when you sort of, you know what, I'm going to use orcs today because it's fun, and I'm going to use a kill rig because that sounds stupid and hilarious, and I'm gonna put 10 knobs inside a battle wagon and then deep strike it from space. Whereas competitively, it's like, well, unless you've got 27 buggies, it doesn't work. Well, I've never used 27 buggies before, so I have no idea what I'm doing. So then the minute that you take an army, or even a list, let alone an army that you've never used before, it's suddenly a massive learning curve that you're not really giving a full example of what it is capable of doing competitively speaking.
Yep. And then you don't get to play with that same list often enough to really fine tune its nuances on how to use it. So all of a sudden, because then we're chopping to a different army, it doesn't work. So for the rest of this season, 20 games, we're all committing to one army. Let's reveal the armies now, and then, Chef, I'll have you reveal the format.
Okay, then.
Very exciting. Okay, so first up, I am going to be running for this season, for the rest of the year, Flesh Terrors. They're not the most cutting edge, but they have had a little resurgence since Nephilim, because they've got some good secondaries.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Blood Angels do have some good secondaries as a whole, and I think the Flesh Terrors have got some little tricks up their sleeve.
They have some tricks. I'm just saying, are they top 5? Look, maybe as an outlier. I think they've got some tricks. Stephen, my mate Stephen's done very well with them. They haven't won any GTs yet, though, and I think there are definitely other armies which are better. But that's what I'm going to try and make work. Very excited to see how they run in this season. Chef, what are you running?
Yeah, and just on that before I do, Matt, I think that is exactly kind of the point. Exactly kind of the point? You know what I mean. That's going to be a really interesting aspect of this new format, which is we are trying to make our armies work. Yeah. Not trying to force our playstyle into another person's playstyle. Because there's some incredible lists out there, but as you mentioned, some of them are quite skewed, or some of them are run by veterans, or some of them are run by people who literally play 40k for a living. Now, I know we do, but we're also doing editing and all the other stuff that goes on in the background.
We don't only play tournaments.
I wish we only played games for a living. But like, is it John Lennon? Who only plays Eldar. Yes. Has only ever played Eldar. I would not want to play him if he's playing Eldar.
Oh no, that's not John Lennon.
Oh, Sean Naden.
Sean Naden.
Sean Naden. Yeah, forgive me. Sorry if you watch it. Yeah. But that's kind of like, he's got an army, and through thick and thin, he makes it work because he loves it, and that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Even when they were considered bad.
Yep.
And he was still winning GTs.
Yeah.
So it's a really good example of, I think, 40k competitive should be, if we talk ITC, I think it should be run that way anyway.
I mean, look, if
it
ITC
would create a far more interesting meta in my
If
opinion.
you had to lock in your faction and stick through them thick and thin, I think you'd get a lot more. I think you'd get a lot more interesting armies.
I think you really
Because
would.
you would go, yeah, I can build this SKU list,
Yeah.
but when that SKU list is gone or someone comes up with a counter, you go, well, I'm stuck with this army. I can't just pivot to another army. I've got to redo.
Won't all of a sudden have this dominant AdMech meta.
Dominant Drakari.
Because,
dominant
like
Nyx.
half of the field have taken AdMech. Not that I think that came close at a couple of events. I think the worst was like 40% or 36%
I don't know if
or
it was
something.
quite that high.
Not quite that high, but either way, you'd only see the AdMech players which had chosen AdMech at the beginning, right? So ultimately, I think it would make a much healthier meta. And let's reveal your armies, and I'll talk more about my thoughts.
So on the basis of armies that we love, if you guessed anything other than Necrons, you're wrong.
Yes.
Yes, it's Necron time, baby.
Yeah, it's Necron time.
Who have received a big resurgence in the
my
competitive
goodness,
scene
yes.
at the moment, on the back of things like very good secondaries, a ludicrous buff in the to a certain named character, which I don't agree with in any way, shape, or form. And this is kind of what we mean about a crutch.
Yeah.
Like, I think if they the secondaries. Fine. I have an opinion on the faction secondaries for another video. But this kind of crutch mentality of, I'm going to run this because he literally holds up the whole list. I don't think he does now.
Yeah.
Silent King.
Yeah.
We're not talking about like,
a Cryptek.
what was his name? Imhotech.
No.
We're not talking about him. We're talking about the Silent King.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how I can put a spin on them, because I know that there's a lot of talk about Doom Scythes, and there's talk about Ophidian Destroyers.
Yeah.
When did you last see them compared
Never.
to it? There's a lot of scope now within the book because of the recent balanced data slate. But this will be the interesting thing, because between now, 20 games takes us up to what, December?
Takes us up to December.
I mean, look, we're looking at maybe another 2 balanced data slates between now and then.
Yeah, things may change.
We've got look. If I've chosen Necrons, if they suddenly go, yeah, Silent King's not core and none of your vehicles are core. Well, if I pivoted hard into a vehicle-heavy army, I might have made a mistake. You see, so we're going to have to adapt to that living meta. Yeah. So yes, Necrons. Very excited to see them work on a competitive setting in terms of the GT. And yeah, I just really like them. They're just a lot of fun.
Well, they are very cool.
Yeah, they're going to have some struggles, but again, I'm hoping that I can learn to utilize the army better to overcome certain problems.
Yep, and over the course of the league season, you should get exactly that, because you can use the same army again and again.
You get an idea of where you stand.
So, okay, we're now revealed that Katie is, of course, running the NIDS, and we already know that they're in a massively good spot at the moment.
Yes.
Mortal wins for fun. James, aka Bard, is going to be running the Grey Knights. And Beard is going to be running the Iron Warriors, which of course benefiting from a wonderful new Chaos Codex. So we've got some great variety in there, but just to top it off, we have Fletcher too, who's participating in the league. He's going to be using Tau, Farsight Unclosed.
Power gamer?
Specifically, yes. So we've got some great variety. We've got some great games lined up. Now let's talk about how this is going to work. It's 20 games for this season. We'll finish out the season. A champion will be crowned at the end of it in December, which is very exciting. Yes, crowned. We're going to update the league tables once more on the websites. They'll go live after the first game.
Yep.
Okay, I don't want to obviously put results beforehand. So what is the format? How is this going to work?
So as you say, there's 20 games. Now for the purposes of this
season?
Season, because that's what we're going to call it, seasons.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this season, it's the 20 games. There's no 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, no points for a loss. It's just going to be win, loss, and obviously if there's a draw, that will adjust sort of back of house calculations, but we're keeping it super simple because it's all knockout. Well, I say all knockout. The first 15 games are our qualifiers, basically. Yeah. So we're all playing each other just the once. Just the once, but this will enable us to do 1 game a week in the run up to the winter finals, which is very cool. Right?
Very cool, yeah.
So we're all going to play against each other just the once in our qualifying stages. The 4 who have the most wins will go over to semi-final knockouts, and then at that it is just semi-final knockouts for the final. We're also going to have a playoff for the wooden spoon and a playoff for 3rd place. Okay, so we will have, by the end of the 20 games, first all the way through to the 6th.
Yep.
Well, first to Wooden Spoon, champ to Wooden Spoon.
Yes.
And it's going to be real nice and simple to begin with, because that's what we're going to do for this season. The next season is where it's going to get really exciting.
Yes.
But that's for another time.
Speaking of which, though, just before we get into potential futures and what may happen, why don't we just take a little look at what's up for grabs? What is the trophy of power? And here it is in all of its glory, the championship belt. Nice bit of poot at that.
Oh, it's a top drawer find, that.
It is a top drawer find. So massive shout out to Nathan, who donated this to us and got it made for us, which is amazing. Thank you so much. This is the belt that we're going to be playing for, and someone will be able to put on in December this year. Now, a little insight into the future just before we go. We think this is a great way to run a competitive league. But what if we were to tell you, since many of you will know now, we've got a new event space which is being built as we speak. If we were to incorporate this in our events,
I think that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't
that
it?
would be very cool.
Yeah,
if we were to then incorporate it in our app and enable people to also be able to play at home, and then maybe coming to the events would be a multiplier for points, that would be pretty
That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it?
So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It sounds pretty spectacular if you were to allow people to participate in a pointed league system with a multiplier for attending our events and see your name on the rankings after the end of every league video, and potentially come to invitationals and, you know, face off in championship games. But I mean, I
think probably just leave it at that.
It just sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? I mean, it'd be interesting to see if something like that happened.
It would be very interesting. So you've got lots of things to look forward to. Us running our 20 episode league is just the appetizer. There's some very cool things. Yeah, exactly. Some very
the spear of the tip.
Some very, very cool things coming to you guys very soon. More on that, an official announcement on that soon, as technical things happen behind the scenes to make it all possible. But for now, that's it. You guys can look forward to the new first episode of the league dropping here on YouTube very, very soon. Should be this week, maybe even this Saturday. Till then, I have nothing further to add. You've got the competitive league to look forward to. Do you have any last thoughts, Mr. Chef?
It's just nice to have something tangible to wear around the office when I win this league.
Wow, it's big words there, Mr. Chef. Big words. Personally, I think Katie with those Tyrann is going to be pretty nasty and hard to beat.
Challenge accepted.
Till next time, I've been Lawrence, you've been Chef, and you've been Bosses. Goodbye for now.
Bye.